1. Alexander Zverev, June 3, 2022. Alexander Zverev was dominating Rafael Nadal in a French Open semi-final when his ankle exploded with a sound that silenced 15,000 people at Roland Garros. The German was playing the tennis of his life on court Philippe Chatrier, locked in a brutal 3-hour battle against the King of Clay. He had just taken the first set in a tie-break and was pushing Nadal to his absolute limit in the second set. Everything Zverev had worked for was within reach. He was guaranteed to become world number one in just 4 days and was on the verge of reaching his first Grand Slam final. Then, late in the second set tiebreak, he chased down a forehand to his right. As he planted his right foot to execute his signature sliding movement on the clay, his ankle buckled inward at a grotesque angle, rolling completely over itself. The scream that followed was pure, primal agony as he collapsed face first into the red clay, his body convulsing in pain. The match stopped instantly. Medical staff rushed onto the court as Zverev writhed on the ground, clutching his destroyed ankle and crying out in anguish. The crowd of 15,000 fell completely silent, watching in horror as one of tennis's brightest stars suffered a career-altering injury in real time. Within minutes, he was wheeled off court Philippe Chatrier in a wheelchair, his face buried in his hands, tears streaming down his cheeks. The diagnosis was catastrophic. 3 completely torn lateral ligaments in his right ankle requiring immediate reconstructive surgery. His 2022 season was over in an instant. His guaranteed ascent to world number one vanished. His first Grand Slam final disappeared. His Olympic title defense was gone. One plant of the foot had cost him everything he'd spent his entire career building toward. 2. Juan Martín del Potro. The gentle giant from Argentina was supposed to dominate tennis for a decade. Juan Martín del Potro had everything: a thunderous forehand that could break racket strings, a towering 6'6" frame, and the heart of a champion. In September 2009, he stunned the tennis world by defeating both Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer back-to-back to win the US Open at just 20 years old. He was the youngest Grand Slam champion since Nadal, and tennis experts predicted he would collect multiple majors. His forehand was clocked at over 100 miles per hour, and his gentle demeanor off court made him a fan favorite worldwide. Then his left wrist started hurting. What began as minor discomfort during practice sessions in early 2010 became a nightmare that would define the rest of his career. Del Potro underwent his first wrist surgery in May 2010, missing both the French Open and Wimbledon. The surgery was supposed to fix a small tear in his wrist tendon, but when he returned months later, the pain was still there. By 2014, the wrist had deteriorated completely. During a match at Indian Wells, he collapsed to his knees mid-rally, unable to continue, knowing his career was in serious jeopardy. The surgeries kept coming. 4 major operations on his left wrist between 2010 and 2015. Each procedure promised to be the final one. Each comeback brought renewed hope from his devoted Argentine fans. Each setback brought heartbreak that was visible in his eyes during press conferences. Then, just as his left wrist began to heal, his right wrist started breaking down from overcompensation. 2 more surgeries followed. The man who should have won multiple Grand Slams was reduced to a part-time player, constantly battling the very weapon that made him special. 3. Serena Williams. February 2011. Serena Williams was celebrating her 13th Grand Slam title at the Australian Open when she stepped on a piece of broken glass at a Munich restaurant. It seemed like nothing. A small cut on her right foot that required 18 stitches. She posted photos on social media, laughing about her clumsiness. 2 weeks later, she was fighting for her life in a Los Angeles hospital. What started as a minor accident had triggered a cascade of life-threatening complications that would keep her away from tennis for nearly a year. The cut had become infected, leading to a hematoma that required emergency surgery, but the real nightmare began during her recovery. Confined to bed rest and unable to move properly, Williams developed a pulmonary embolism, a massive blood clot that traveled to her lungs. She couldn't breathe. Her heart was racing. She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors discovered the clot was so large it could have killed her instantly. She needed immediate treatment with blood thinners and round-the-clock monitoring. Then came the second pulmonary embolism, and a third. Each time, Williams thought she might die. She later revealed she had developed a cough that wouldn't go away, and when she finally sought medical attention, doctors found another life-threatening clot. For months, she lived in constant fear, taking powerful medications that left her weak and unable to train. The woman who had dominated tennis through sheer physical power was reduced to struggling to walk upstairs. Her return to tennis in June 2011 at Eastbourne was emotional and shaky. She lost in the first round, looking nothing like the dominant champion she had been. But Williams didn't just survive. She came back to win 10 more Grand Slam titles, proving that sometimes the greatest victories happen off the court. If you are loving this video, please click the hype button on your mobile screen and help us to reach out to more tennis fans. Done? Let's continue. 4. Andy Murray, January 2019. Andy Murray stood in front of the world's media at the Australian Open and broke down in tears. The three-time Grand Slam champion, former world number 1, and Britain's greatest tennis player announced that his career was effectively over. His right hip, which had been causing him excruciating pain for over 2 years, had deteriorated to the point where he could barely put on his shoes without agony. The man who had spent his career chasing down impossible shots and grinding out 5-set victories was now struggling to walk normally. Murray's hip problems had started gradually in 2017, but by 2018, the pain was unbearable. He underwent surgery to shave bone spurs from his hip joint, but the relief was temporary. The cartilage in his hip was completely worn away, leaving bone grinding against bone with every step. He tried everything, different treatments, modified training, pain injections, but nothing worked. During matches, he would grimace with every movement, his legendary court coverage reduced to careful, calculated steps. The breaking point came during his first-round loss at the 2019 Australian Open. Murray was in visible agony throughout the match, barely able to serve properly. After the defeat, he revealed he had been taking strong painkillers just to get through matches, and even then, the pain was overwhelming. He couldn't sleep properly, couldn't train effectively, and couldn't play the aggressive, physical style that had made him a champion. But Murray refused to accept defeat. In a last-ditch effort to save his career, he underwent hip resurfacing surgery, a procedure that involved capping his hip joint with metal. It was a radical solution that had never been tried by a professional tennis player. Doctors warned him he might never play competitively again, but Murray was willing to risk everything for one more chance. 5. Martina Hingis. She was tennis's teenage sensation, the youngest player ever to reach world number 1 at just 16 years old. Martina Hingis had already won 5 Grand Slam singles titles by age 18, combining courtcraft and tennis IQ that belied her years. Her game was built on precision, not power. She could place the ball anywhere on the court with surgical accuracy. But by 2002, at just 22 years old, chronic injuries had turned her body into a battlefield, forcing her into premature retirement when she should have been entering her prime. The problem started with her ankles. Years of competitive tennis from childhood had taken their toll, and by her late teens, Hingis was dealing with persistent ankle injuries that required constant treatment. Then came the foot problems, stress fractures and chronic pain that made every step on court agony. But the final blow was her back. Herniated discs and chronic inflammation made it impossible for her to serve effectively or move with the fluidity that had made her special. What made Hingis's situation particularly tragic was the timing. She was forced to retire in February 2003, just as the women's game was becoming more competitive and lucrative than ever. Players like Serena Williams and Venus Williams were dominating with power, but Hingis had proven she could beat them with intelligence and skill. Her last tournament was the Australian Open, where she lost in the first round, clearly hampered by pain and unable to move freely. The psychological toll was enormous. Hingis had been a perfectionist who demanded excellence from her body, but her body could no longer deliver. She tried multiple comebacks over the years, but each attempt ended in disappointment and more pain. Her singles career was effectively over before her 23rd birthday, robbing tennis of one of its most gifted players during what should have been her peak years. If you are loving this video, subscribe to our channel and help us reach 5,000 subs by month's end. 6. Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal has played professional tennis for over 20 years with a body that should have broken down a decade ago. The King of Clay suffers from Miller-Weiss syndrome, a rare degenerative condition that causes chronic deformity of the navicular bone in his left foot. There is no cure. The condition only gets worse over time. Yet Nadal has won 22 Grand Slam titles while managing pain that would end most careers, making him perhaps the greatest warrior in tennis history. The foot problem started early in his career, but Nadal learned to play through constant discomfort. Before every match, he receives nerve-blocking injections that essentially make his foot sleep so he can compete without feeling the grinding pain of bone-on-bone contact. During the 2022 French Open, he revealed he had been playing with his foot completely numb, relying on muscle memory and years of experience to move around the court. The injections are so powerful that he can't feel if he's injured his foot further during matches, but the foot is just one part of Nadal's catalog of injuries. His knee knees have been a constant source of problems since 2009, with chronic tendinitis that has forced him to withdraw from multiple tournaments. His playing style, the extreme topspin, the sliding on hard courts, the physical intensity of every point, puts enormous stress on his joints. He's undergone multiple treatments, including stem cell therapy and platelet-rich plasma injections, just to keep playing. The most heartbreaking aspect of Nadal's situation is watching him manage expectations. He can never plan more than a few months ahead because he doesn't know when his body will force him to stop. Every tournament could be his last, every match a potential farewell. Yet he continues to compete at the highest level, winning Grand Slams in his mid-30s while dealing with pain that would sideline most athletes permanently. These 6 stories prove that tennis isn't just about talent or technique. It's about the human capacity to endure unimaginable pain and keep fighting. From Zverev's dream shattered in a single moment to Nadal's 2-decade war against his own body, each of these champions faced a choice: surrender to the pain or find a way to transcend it. What makes these injuries so devastating isn't just the physical damage, it's the timing. Zverev was hours away from his first Grand Slam final. Del Potro should have been collecting multiple majors in his prime. Serena nearly died from a simple cut on her foot. Murray was told his career was over. Hingis lost her peak years to accumulated damage. And Nadal has spent his entire career proving that willpower can overcome physical limitations. The cruel irony of professional tennis is that the very qualities that make champions great, the relentless pursuit of perfection, the refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to push their bodies beyond normal limits, are often what destroys them. These players didn't just battle opponents across the net. They battled their own bodies, their own mortality, and the knowledge that every match could be their last. But perhaps that's what makes their stories so compelling. These champions showed us that true greatness isn't measured only in titles won, but in the courage to keep fighting when everything seems lost. Their pain became our inspiration, their struggles became our motivation, and their refusal to quit became the stuff of legend. Tennis will always be a sport where dreams and bodies break in equal measure, but these 6 champions prove that sometimes the greatest victories happen not when you avoid the pain, but when you refuse to let it define you. Thanks for watching, and you can watch our next video here.